So I don't have a proper mic set up yet, but I'm just gonna try to speak loudly so that you can hear me and so that, we're kind of getting to the point here. I want to unpack the issues that I have with Zoey as a character for a moment, because I feel like Zoey has a lot of issues. I've actually heard from a couple of different sources. Well, not basically. There's a lot of, how can we say? Okay, so there's many issues, but issue number one, like, we do not have enough television shows, enough media representation of average Black women, right? So we are literally lacking representation around Black womanhood. So all we have are these exaggerated tropes in all of the ways. I also feel like I am an exaggerated trope. Like, my existence is an exaggerated trope. So I don't think it's not pragmatic to use my story in any ways as like some really example of anything, because it's just you don't know all the facts and you weren't there. So yeah. Okay, but let's go back. So when I watch Grownish and I see Zoey as a character, that is the character that Yara Shahidi plays, I understand and I appreciate who she is, how she behaves, why she behaves that way, and like what it and like so much of her personality. I understand, because I identify with it. I'm like that too. My lived experience was similar in some ways. In some ways, not most of the ways, but in some ways. Now, the issue that I think Zoey is unrelatable in so many ways, because Zoey's a token. Like, she's like the one Black person in like white spaces. Now, like, that's how my life has been. I've always been like the one Black person in white spaces, but Zoey is also just extremely privileged in ways that are unrelatable, and that's what makes her character so far removed. She's just so far removed, like, she doesn't understand what like common women go through. And also, even in the show, like, she doesn't really have any like normal Black friends. She does have those cousins that come like one time, but they're not relatable in any way. Like, they're just like, they're exaggerated, like, they're exaggerated. They're like, I don't know, like tropes in these fucking strange ways. Like, they only come for Halloween, and then they're like dressed up weird, and then they like have, it's just like all the exaggeratedness, and it's, I don't know. And then I also don't appreciate how, like, to me, Dre is also exaggerated, because it's just like, why is it that every aspect of his personality has to do with his class? That's weird, and I really don't like that aspect of like Black Americana. To me, it's frustrating, because it's like Black people who don't have like that much wealth flaunting like they have that much wealth. Like, that's another thing I appreciate, like the show like Black as Fuck, Black AF, that Netflix show was about like Kenyara Barris and his family, because it was like, well, yeah, I mean, his family really be living like that though, like, so it was like, it made sense. But it's like Blackish or Grownish, it's supposed to be more of like a middle class experience, and it's not giving like Cosby Show, where there was so much like relatability, as in like if you watched the Cosby Show and you saw Denise as a character, they were upper middle class too, but Denise had like hella different friends, like, because they were in the city, and like Zoey's in the city too, but like, it's like you don't really see, I don't know, whatever. Maybe I'm exaggerating here, and it's kind of strange, because you're like, no, this is a good point. Like, how does she go to Cal U, which is like a university in California, and then it's like the whole experience, like all the people that she's around are people of color at a primarily white institution? Like, there should be way more white characters in this show, but I think the point is to like target it to like a Black audience. Except the problem with this is like, it's not realistic because like at a PWI, most people are going to be white. So it's like you have to include white people in the narrative. I guess you only have like 23 minutes, so like how can you give people speaking time and like, but you just have to have more white characters that are like true to life, because it even gives the wrong impression to the black people, because it's like, how do the black people interact with the people who are already there? This is why like it's very strange. Like, no, I don't know any Asian people or any white people who watch or even know about Grownish, the show. That show's, the only people who watch it are like other black people. And it's not like most black people can't relate to it. Like all the black people, the urban black people cannot relate to Grownish or Zoey as a character. She's like way too complex. She's way too autonomous. She's completely unrelatable. She's almost like invisible. Like I don't think her experience is, it's just not even, I don't know. It's just not, it's just so unrelatable in all the ways. It's very strange. I guess though, I'm happy that we had this piece of content, because we can start having conversations about it. And I feel like I should have done this before. Like I should have made more content about maybe I can still do this. It's not like it's too late. I'll start making content about the Cosby Show. We'll bring back the Cosby Show and the characters, who the characters are and how they are, who they are in the world, and how that relates to now. Because I feel like that's the weird part though. Like New York is just different, bro, because like everybody rides the subway and like everybody just like out in the community. In the Bay Area, it's like, man, people just be segregated. Like if you live in like some public housing community, you might be only around impoverished people. Like you literally might not know anybody who's ever gone to college, or you might not know anybody who's like, who has a job. You might not know anybody who's like not a drug dealer, or you might not know anybody who's not a doctor. It seems like wherever you land in that like socioeconomic sphere, every single person around you is like the same. And that's weird, because like that's not real. Like that's not real. You're never gonna come in life. How would you actually be around only one type of person? Like really only one person? Also, I think it's very strange too, like the silencing method. Like it's like this is why I felt like I had to make so much content about like different shit, like especially like uncomfortable emotions like sadness, shock, jealousy, anger, because we haven't seen those expressed in a healthy way around black women, and we like desperately need to. But like in this, that's another part that's like very strange, because we do have these like these exaggerated stories of black grief that are like nobody's life is tragic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like that's also a trope that doesn't make any sense. It's like you're going to have good times and you're going to have bad times, and it's like that and sometimes nothing happens, you know. But there's like all the movies and the tropes and the news articles, you know, they tried to trivialize like the black female experience as though it were all trauma porn all the time. And I feel like that's what fed into like the rise of the Karen, you know. It's like because there's no equalizing moment. It's just like the Karens feel superior because they don't have the trauma porn of the stereotypical propagandized black female, but they don't know any black females in real life. So it's like this imaginary trope that you've seen on television. It's not real in society because you don't know any people who are living that or any other experience. So that's another weird part of like society and community in general, where like there are people in the world, right? Like I'm literally here in the world now. There are other people around me. This is a city and a state, and there are like communities and neighborhoods and people who live and work in those communities and neighborhoods. And all of those people have stories. All of those people have goals. All of those people have interests. Sorry. Literally everyone. Everyone. Because like that is a part of being alive. Like being alive means that you have like goals and ambitions and stories and experiences. Everyone has those. So there's not another thing. I think that the issue is some of you are looking past the goals and ambitions and humanizing experience of the people who live in your direct community, like maybe your proximate neighbors to the left, right, up and down, or whatever, if you live in an apartment building, and then the people who live on the block or maybe 2 blocks over, like other people who frequent the grocery store, the parents of the children at your school. Like the community is a real thing. This is why there's like Daniel the Tiger and Mr. Rogers in the neighborhood, because it's a neighborhood and a community. Like there's other people who live there, and I think so many people are trivializing or assuming shit about other people's stories that they don't know as true. This is why like gossiping is just so wrong. Like it's so pointless. It's pointless. It's like this society has turned into gossiping and bullying, which are both wrong. Like if someone does something awful, like maybe they like set a fire to a trash can or something. Like let's say like John sets a fire to a trash can on 73rd Street. Okay, like we know who John is, we know where 73rd Street is, and we know that somebody, probably the fire department, had to put the fire out. Let's contextualize that situation. John was probably upset. That's why he like lit the fire. That's real. And we have to start there. And then John took his anger out in an inappropriate way. So stop for a second. Why aren't people, instead of like, here's what I see people doing in society. People are gossiping and writing blog posts and sending text messages, and they have tweets and they're sharing photos and shit and private group messages and emails and all this shit. So everybody's like, oh, this happened, no, this happened, and I said this, and then she said this, and I said this, and everybody's saying all this shit. Okay, guess what? Like, John knows what he did. John's parents probably have found out. Like, the people closest to John have probably figured out what happened. If you are a person who doesn't care about John, at least get the story straight. And also realize that John will move forward with his life and do something besides burning a trash can. So you cannot look at John as just the trash can burner and say like that's the end of his story, because it isn't. This is the problem that I have with society. It's like every single thing that people have deemed as like wrong or bad, people are criminalizing the person who's done it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, as though that's their only story, and they just won't let them move past it. And instead of like just trying to like humanize John and trying to basically like reintegrate John into society, allowing him to grow from his mistakes. Another part of this is like somebody has to tell John like, yo bro, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Do this instead. And John has to be socialized then to like do the right thing. The socialization experience involves corrective action and other people reinforcing positive behavior. If those things are missing, John will not be able to grow or change. So when everyone else in society is reinforcing a negative story about John that was at one time true, but since he is not actively burning cans this second, is not currently true, what you're doing is bringing John back into this experience that he had in the past and trivializing him to be one-dimensional. That is wrong. That is illogical. This is another thing, like it's a problem that I have with kind of like the news right now, where everybody's like reading the same story. Like, this is a problem I have with like the Kardashians specifically. They're just like so hyper visible, and everyone is like reading about them, and everyone is seeing all the pictures, and everyone is talking about it, and everyone has these opinions. But the reality is, like, Kim is one woman. Like, she's a mom to like some kids that are living in the real society that the rest of us live in. Like, Kim has neighbors, Kim has friends, Kim has a boyfriend, Kim has an ex-husband. You know, like, she's a human like the rest of us. So while everyone is like constantly just talking over and over about her and how she did this and all these things, like, life is going on, and the same experiences that she's having as a human, you who's watching my video right now are required to have similar experiences as a human as well. And I think people are brushing over that because they're placing someone else's human experience above their own. This is one of the ways where I feel like some people have not yet been able to experience art for what it is and the humanization process, especially like music, right? Because like, music is this opportunity where other people who have experienced something in the world have like gone on to write about and share their lived experience from that situation. I guess it's a problem when society has now become this like targeting act of like, let's all gang up on this one negative experience, and then at the same time say all this, you know, awful shit. It's kind of like, nobody's like all bad and nobody's like all good. It's kind of like a both at the same time sort of thing. And that's a little hard to explain, but that's how it is. That was a lot, but I feel like it was necessary to say. Whatever.